Sue.
Yep.
What's the difference then between protection and support?
Right. Protection is active and passive.
Yeah.
And it really is to do with, if you like it says, protecting yourself against influences outside of yourself. So if you like, working like as a shielding mechanism. Passive would be things that you don't have to think about, like popping a crystal in your pocket or a pendant around your neck or something like that. Active is when you do visualizations or you do mantra.
Yeah.
In other words, if you don't keep it up all the time, then it goes. So that's why passive is usually quite useful. Support is really to do with helping someone to be in the best place that they are for how they're living. So it's not necessarily, it can be protective, but it's not necessarily that. It's really about helping them live their lives, helping them process any healing.
Yeah.
And so the things that you do may be the same. You may still have crystal in your pocket, do a meditation or do a visualization, but it's done for a different reason. Rather than, we see the thing about protection is that it's techniques that could be seen as crutches.
Right.
Until you're strong enough to get your stuff to be able to do it on your own. Whereas support is actually the help to do it on your own.
Right.
Yeah. So it's just a slight difference between the two. I don't know whether Si's got anything else to say.
Support is like a fine tuning, so it makes you more effective in whatever you're doing. So if you're quite on 100% and you can do something to help you to be to 100%, that's a support thing. So support is in the internal modification, something that will get the systems working more efficiently for the task that you're wanting to do. Like Sue says, protection and support, the sort of the methods are the same, but it's just that protection takes into consideration the fact that you need support because of strong external influences, whereas support may just be
internal.
Although it may be external as well, but that's really the difference. Support makes it, whatever you do, more efficient, and protection ensures that there's no outside influences impinging on whatever you're doing.
Okay, so it sounds like it's a very good idea to have a range of different things. Yeah.
So like we said, in both cases there's passives and there's active.
Yeah.
The advantage with passive stuff is that you haven't got to think about it.
Yeah.
And if you really are in a bit of a 2 and 8 about something,
Yeah.
you need stuff that you don't have to think about.
Yeah.
Active stuff like visualizations, particular activities, doing mantra or things like that, you have to have enough brain power to be able to realise you need to do it. And if you really are low, you don't have that.
Yeah.
So,
I suppose then if you're in a place and you don't have a crystal or something, then that's when the active comes in, because you can actually do something that isn't reliant on having something.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And the thing is, the main thing to do is to find out what there is that you have available in wherever you are, that will support you or protect you.
Right.
So there's always something around, even if it's nothing internal.
So,
something you know already.
So things, for example, can be symbols, smells, tastes even. Obviously things like crystals, jewellery, plants, flowers. So I said anything that is supportive of you. Whereas active stuff, you've got to be literally to do it. So maybe even just walking down the road might be active, or swimming might be active.
So yes, things that ground you, they're activities that ground you.
Not necessarily, because that would be part of it, but it may be ones that you enjoy.
Right.
It's like some of the best protection, if you really are feeling pressed on by energies outside yourself, is to go to the cinema to go see comedy.
Yeah.
Because just taking yourself to a different place, having a good laugh, whatever, it's just changing things. It changes the energy.
Right.
So not necessarily saying that would be grounding,
Right. Okay.
but it's like it breaks the
connection.
It breaks the entrainment.
I think if you're looking at defining what you need at any one time, it's quite good to, or helpful sometimes, to define those areas as: is it a grounding exercise? Is it a charging and energising thing I need to do, or is it this?
Was it a relaxing thing I need to do?
Was it a relaxing thing? And then you can then check it, which it seems a bit long-winded, but I mean that's why we tend to put all the options on an arc, so you can just do whatever. Yeah, because again you'll tend to have favourites, but the favourites may not necessarily be the best for the job.
Okay. So if we just look at some of the passive stuff, because the thing that people will most be familiar with, you look in a book and this stone is protective, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So what have you found that is there a correlation between these stones are protective, or is it just...
Well, anything you like tends to increase your life force and will therefore be protective. A lot of the grounding stones are.
Right.
Obviously, smoky quartz, black tourmaline, obsidian, labradorite, all those things are very protective.
Right.
As well. But I mean, if you have a favourite, something else that's pink, that will help to boost your energy. So it doesn't necessarily follow that you can be prescriptive about it.
Especially if it's a support situation, then the little tweaks that you might need could be on any level, so any colour stone, any type of stone. In terms of protection from strong outside influences, then you always tend to suffer where you're weakest. So where you have fractures in your own energy system, those are the things that will need bolstering when you're under pressure from outside. So if you know that you're always vulnerable in the solar plexus, then you might find that the solar plexus type colours and stones will work best. If you're always too open at the heart, then green and pink.
Right.
If it always goes to your throat, then a blue or indigo. So it goes on that sort of weakness, strength.
Yeah.
So, and there's something that you want to mention about it, a bit like it's like Star Trek with...
Yeah, changing your shields frequently. Yeah, because you find it, particularly in protection, not so much in support, but if you really are under pressure, not from natural environmental things, but if it's people stuff, then it's a good idea not to keep on using the same thing. Is to use the same thing for a couple of days, then change it to something else, and then change it to something else, because if somebody's really, really good at getting through your boundaries, they will be good enough to adapt and find other ways in. And it's a matter of just keep on shifting, changing your shield frequencies.
And then something else that you want to mention about making sure you're not juicy to other people.
Tasty. Yeah, well, it's interesting because I think it's one of the things that people tend to forget. I think it's a shamanic saying is, you're either the eater or eaten, or usually you're both at the same time. And if particular people-to-people stuff, certain people will find your energy tasty. And this can happen in family situations and those sort of things. And the thing to do is if you do something different, like you're wearing a different crystal, or you're wearing a different colour, or you'll change something, that will change your energy enough that the people who've been energetically feeding off you or directing you won't be able to do it so easily.
So again, it's looking at the weaknesses. So what is tasty is either your strength or your weakness in manifesting your strength too much.
But the thing is, your weakness and your strength are often the same thing. That's the ironic thing.
But with that situation, you've got,
for example, slurping off the heart centre.
Well, I'm going to try it, because one of the things that it's not traditionally comes up in the books as being protective, but for example, I like fluorite. Because the idea of fluorite, or the energy of fluorite, is quite into discipline and structure and order.
And it's also very, very coordinating and is it up, downy, or side to side? I can't remember, but it's very integrating.
Yeah,
it's very integrating.
So I found that if somebody is trying to slurp from you, actually getting more coherent and structured and so disciplined about your own energy is something they don't actually want to tie into.
It's all to do with boundaries.
Yeah.
The thing is, what I was thinking, was if you have changed your energy, so you take an essence or something and it subtly changes your taste, then that's something that will be more noticed by the people who are using your energy than yourself often. So something which is not noticeable to you is noticeable to other people, and they will then notice a change in your behaviour, or you're doing something slightly different, or you're not falling for the tricks in the same way, and so they'll react in a way that suggests that you're being hostile to them or don't like them anymore.
Or they'll either back off or they get angry, basically.
So it's a good sign that if that happens, that you're doing the right thing. It's not something you need to avoid. I mean, you'll need to counter in some way, but it's not something that is your fault. It's that you've changed your energies. It's a situation where people know each other, they're quite happy, and then suddenly somebody decides to do something different, and they start changing, growing, or whatever. You know, becoming interested in something that the others aren't interested in, and suddenly the dynamics of the relationships, the friendships change. Yeah, it's called growth and change, and that's what happens. So in those sort of situations, when one part changes, then if the other part, if there is antagonism from the others, then that just shows that something's going on and it is change. Yeah,
it shows that they're no longer getting their food, which means that you've done it right. Yeah, you know, you still got to deal with it, but it means you've done it right.
So another interesting one that I just realised recently is that, for example, in the Chinese system, it's the heart protector, is the boundaries for the heart. But when you look at it from the John Diamond point of view, the things that weaken it are jealousy and remorse and regret. It's all relationship stuff. Yeah. So it's actually being able to let go of stuff and also find a balanced view of relationships is what actually puts the boundaries in place that does protect you. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the heart centre itself is the core of the boundaries. So what is me, what is not me. Yeah. That also is part of solar plexus.
And then you said that it's the place where therapists do get whacked because we are very open in that area.
I was going to say that in that sort of situation, the therapy situation, where you are naturally open, compassionate and aware of what's happening more than maybe in an ordinary non-therapy situation, and you're in a certain position, a certain role, that's when checking for protection and support before you start working is really important, because then that sets up the proper boundaries for that session. So asking it as one question, do I need protection or support, and then doing whatever is required, will help to maintain your coherence in face of any emotional onslaught, because everything tends to come at you at an emotional level, right, or be interpreted in an emotional way. So you have to maintain that emotional stability and boundaries yourself.
So that's why in the therapy situation we ask, do they need protection from me, do I need protection from them? It's nothing personal, it's just...
No, I mean, as far as the client's concerned, the stuff is more to do with, I mean, it's both to do with making sure you're both looking at the same issues in the same way, from the optimum point of view. But from the client's point of view, they may need support because it is a delicate, unbalancing issue that is being dealt with, and the support is just to stop them from collapsing and or rejecting the work that you're doing. Whereas for yourself, the support is more to do with making sure that you are as efficient as you can be doing the work, and you're not causing friction.
I always think it's sort of like it's the fact that you're not sure what's in your unconscious, and taking responsibility for the stuff,
for whatever that's there.
Particularly when something comes up that you're either very familiar with the scenario because you've had it in your life, or that it's something that is makes you nervous in some way. You know, something that is very, very difficult to work with or very complex, and it starts to undermine your confidence, then that checking on the protection and support just helps that stability. It is very much that re-establishing of personal boundaries.
Yeah. And I mean, it doesn't matter whether you're a beginner therapist or an experienced therapist, it's all the same. You know, you're always going to come across stuff that your client brings up that is also part of yours, or that you're actually dealing with at the moment, which can be, in fact, really very hard to actually still maintain that professional sort of whatever.
I think the major thing, the way that we work, is that because we're checking all the time about this sort of appropriateness and checking on protection and support and whatever everything we need, means all the work we do is so much faster, so much more efficient than most other forms of crystal work, because the majority of people just slap stones on and hope they do the job, you know.
Yeah. Or it looks pretty.
Or it looks pretty, and then 3 hours later it may or may not have done something. But if you tailor it and make sure that everything is in place before you do the work, then 2 or 3 minutes, that's all you need.
Yeah.
So it's that attitude of making sure you're taking the right angle to dive in, and then once you've got that trajectory, everything just follows naturally, and the work's done very quickly, and then you can move on. If you don't have protection and support, or you don't check what support your client needs, then there can be a lot of preliminary work that needs to be done before any serious, significant clearing gets to be approached at all, because it's just there's always a resistance.
Yeah. So
that making sure that everything is as harmonious as possible relaxes that resistance and allows the change to take place.
There's just throwing this in because it's just come in. It's something I've read about in one of the trauma books. Is to remember, that our bodies were created on the Serengeti 3 million years ago, and there was a lot of danger there. So we're actually programmed to be protected by somebody else keeping a lookout. Yeah. So if we can actually get to don't look at me like that. I'm being serious here. So if we've got somebody who's watching our back, actually the body goes, oh, I can relax at a deeper level.
Yes, that's right.
So it's actually creating
and it's very much that. And in fact, you usually find when with your therapist hat on that you'll probably do 1 or 2 techniques that seem to be pussyfooting round the outside and then wallop.
Yeah.
It'll just go.
Yeah.
And that's how it is. You don't usually go for that straight away, because if you're actually what's priority, the body will, like all the person's energy will choose to do some surface stuff first to get that relaxation, and then
because I've noticed that when I'm working on myself just individually, I will not go as deep as if when somebody else is sort of like doing it.
Yeah, very much so.
It's also the interaction of different energy fields. That it's a cumulative thing when people get together. There's always a cumulative effect. So if the cumulative effect is in a healing situation, then theoretically the more people you've got in, the faster and the more, the deeper something will work. Which is how it works in traditional societies very often, is that everybody's involved in the healing, and it's the night time's entertainment, but it's also doing serious healing work, because everybody's enjoying it and everybody's supporting everybody through it. Whereas this sort of like thing where we go off somewhere and don't let anybody know what's wrong with us and tell this expert who doesn't tell anything back to us, and then that it's all separated from life rather than being a part of living is difficult, because it creates separation and isolation, and that's the thing that's the single most thing that will crush somebody's energy levels the most, the quickest, the most efficient, is by isolating them from other people.
Yeah, and it's interesting. It's one of the reasons why when you're in teaching, you're in a class situation, is that shit happens.
Yeah.
Because you've got all that, you're in that collective situation. And it's like, and the body thinks, well, hey, I can let go of this.
The deep levels of the self, because of the presence of other people accessing those finer levels as well. At the deep levels, then there is a community effect.
That's like, of course, with the phone. I was walking around and everyone was working. I just kept walking into this lush energy.
Yeah,
it was like, whoa, that's nice.
Yes. Yeah. And it's because of that. It changes things when you're in a group situation.
And also that weekend when Michelle wasn't there and I was doing it, and I forgot to bring the grounding stairs to the corner, and it was more wobbly, and put the grounding, and it's completely changed it. It's this feeling of the room's protected, it's a safe space.
And everything then relaxes. And within the relaxation, it allows stuff to bubble up to the surface.
I mean, really what you're doing is preliminary practices, preliminary cleansing rituals. It's the same, it's a ritual thing. The purpose of any ritual is to ensure that all the elements involved in an action are suited to that action, so that everything goes smoothly. The purpose of ritual is to get as many of the mind, the senses, everything involved, focused on that one thing. So protection and support is exactly the same. It's just using it in a very abbreviated form.